Thank you so much, Joe, for joining us on a podcast with Dawdle. This is a product deep dive, and I have been joined by Joe. Joe, why not you start with your introduction? Tell us a bit about your journey so far, and what are you doing right now?
Yeah. Hi, Risha. Thanks for having me. First of all, it's a pleasure to meet you. I'm very excited to talk more about Millie. Love listening to podcasts myself, so it's nice to actually be on one. So yeah, just a little bit about me, not too much, and then we'll dive into Millie. So yeah, started Millie earlier this year. Have a previous background of over a decade working with financial institutions of all shapes and sizes, from banks here in the United States, expanding throughout the bank reach with wealth managers that they employ. So really helping them with their digital transformation. And that's anything that the customer would be seeing as well as the employee would be seeing. So just making both the employees' lives easier as well as the customers' lives easier. And so that's what led me here to Millie, where we're more hyper focused on the financial advice space. So more, with your here in the United States, with your IRAs, your broker dealers, your wealth managers, again, anyone that's really giving financial advice to an end user. So that's a little bit about what led me here to Millie.
Got it. So tell us a bit about the product. Like, what were the problems in the industry that led to the formation of Millie? First of all, we'll cover that. If you could give some examples, some use cases, would be great.
Yeah, of course. So I think a good way to start that story is to start, how Millie was founded, how Millie was created. So one of our co-founders and our CEO, Shirag, actually was a previous angel investor in the private equity space and was working day to day as part of his job, working with advisors, and noticed that there was just a gap in the way that they were taking notes and the way that they were doing a lot of their admin tasks. And a lot of that, did revolve around first taking notes. How are they doing it? The current process was, classic pen and paper or typing up notes, or maybe they were, a little bit more tech forward and recording on their phone, but then they were still having to go back and take those notes down. And then they were then having to go put those notes into a system of record, a CRM. So a Salesforce, for instance, where all that data would be stored. And he just noticed that there was a gap. There just wasn't a very good way to do that. And so that's really what led to the inception of Millie. And so, here we are today, and we're working with, again, financial advisors, wealth managers that are working with clients day to day. I'm having several meetings a day. And again, the system has been broken for quite a while, where again, there's just no efficient way for them to take notes. But really what that results in is less focus on the client, right? So less focus on things that really matter. Like again, the relationship that you're building with that individual. And when it comes to financial advice, building that trust and building that relationship is really everything. And so, although we're making the lives of the financial advice easier, we're also making the relationship for the client to the advisor better at the same time.
Got it. So what is in it, Millie, in the product that helps this financial advisors, like taking notes, but how?
Yeah, great question. So first and foremost, what we will do is we will transcribe notes in real time. One of the key differences between Millie and the majority of the providers that are in the space is that we are 100% recording free. So there are no audio recordings that are going on behind Millie. And so from a compliance standpoint, that means quite a few things. First and foremost, anything and everything can be said during those meetings, right? And if there's an audio recording, it's all being captured. And that could lead to a class action lawsuit, right? An advisor could be joking about cryptocurrency and not really realize that it could be incriminating, or it could be, put the firm at risk. And so, we really want to eliminate that sort of issue by, again, not having those audio recordings. And the way we do that, again, is transcribe those notes in real time, leveraging AI models to do so. We're also redacting a lot of personal identifying information for the client. So not only is it safe for the advisor or for the employee at the firm, but it's also more safe for the client that's sharing a lot of, again, sensitive information. It could be a social security number. It could be a bank account number, things like that would be living in a recording that you don't want out there, living in a data center somewhere. And so again, Millie redacts that PII in real time and transcribe those notes in a clean fashion that are relevant to the conversation and not just a bulk audio recording that's living out there. So that's a big one that separates Millie from everyone else in the pack. And I'll go ahead and jump into another one since we're talking about differences, and then I'll pause for questions on that. The second difference is let's say you and I'm a financial advisor, you're a client, we join a Zoom meeting with your typical AI meeting assistant, if you will. There's going to be a third-party bot that joins that call. With Millie, we don't have to join the call. There's no third-party intrusive bot that's kind of lurking in the background. And when you're having a sensitive conversation about your finances, it's comforting to know that it's just you and the advisor in the room, and there's not, some third-party bot kind of lurking there. Again, just making it more personal, right? And a bit of background on that is Millie doesn't have to join the Zoom calls because it's an application that's installed locally on your device and will actually transcribe the notes leveraging the hardware on your device. In my case, it would be my MacBook speakers and the microphone, and then transcribe what's being said in real time and create those notes without having to join the meetings. In fact, it would work the exact same whether you're in person. You and I could be sitting in the same room right now. I could have Millie running in the background on my phone, my laptop, on my iPad, and be transcribing those notes. And Millie, frankly, wouldn't know the difference whether we're in person or we were on a Zoom call.
Got it. And so it doesn't even take the permission from the other person.
Good question. So here in the United States, there are consent laws. There are wiretapping laws. We leave it up there are a few ways that you can get consent. The most typical way our clients will get consent is because they're the trusted advisor in the room. They simply say at the beginning of the call, "Hey, Rish, I'm actually going to be using my note taker," similar to what you would see in your doctor's office today, or, "Hey, I'm going to be using my note taker so that way I can, focus on you and less on taking notes." So something as simple as that. We have other ways, one of which that's popular is just an email blast out to all of their clients saying, "Hey, in our upcoming meetings for the next year, I'm going to be leveraging my AI meeting assistant." So good, but yeah, good question. Unless you're in Texas, of course. I think Texas is the only state in the United States where you don't have to have consent.
Yes. And is it a switch off and on button in Millie, or it kind of always is there in your laptop and it records everything that you are doing?
Great question. So yes, it is a switch on and off. Millie is not just going to automatically join meetings. You do have the option to join certain meetings that you want to. Of course, there are certain conversations where you may not want to have Millie joining and taking notes. So you simply would launch into the Millie app, click begin meeting, Millie just pops up and starts transcribing notes. We're also rolling out a feature now where you'll get a banner notification, similar to if you get a text on your phone where it says, "Hey, join meeting and launch Millie." So that way it serves as a reminder and just makes the user experience much easier for that advisor or for that employee to join the meeting and start taking notes without having to remember to start Millie.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I feel is that this is very, this is not intrusive. This doesn't affect, the way you were working before. And also I've seen these note takers miss out on a lot of meetings sometimes, which will not happen, I think, in case of Millie, because, Millie is not joining the meeting with us. What it is doing is that it is kind of transcribing the things from the background and then, helping us with that. Why only financial advisors? Why not? I think the use cases are like that. It can be extended to a lot of other stuff, like any meeting, say.
Yeah, no, and that's accurate. Just a quick anecdotal story, and then I'll explain more. So, for instance, we were doing a testimonial call a couple of months ago with one of our clients, and she was telling us how much she loves Millie. She said, "Millie is now my best friend. She's personalized it much like we do here at Millie. We actually call her she and not an it." So that was great to hear. And she said, "Hey, look, I've been using this in my day-to-day life." She said, "Last week we went to the doctor with my husband and my son." And she said, "My husband and I kind of always argue about what the doctor said." And she said, "You know what? I'm going to have Millie running during the doctor's office visit. And then when we get back home, there won't be any arguments about what kind of medicine he said we should take or something like that." So you're right. It can be used in any sort of meetings. We use it in our internal meetings here at Millie, but more to your direct question. So yeah, it does work for any sort of meeting. But the reason why we focus on this, financial advisor, wealth manager, portfolio manager space is because of the design choices we went with from the very beginning. And that starts with the meeting types, the meeting templates that we have. It also really focuses on the integrations that we've chosen to go with. which is big, right? So the CRM is number one, first and foremost, which are pretty common across, if you're using Salesforce, almost everyone uses Salesforce, right? But there are a lot of financial specific CRMs such as Wealthbox or Redtail or Advison, for instance, that do take time and effort and dedication from dev to ensure those integrations are complete. And so we've decided to put focus on that now. I do see Millie expanding into more of the traditional financial space like banks or credit unions here in the United States. But right now, again, our focus is we want to do the thing we do. We want to do it well, and
Yes.
then expand. Right? We don't want to dilute our product, right, with an industry that we don't feel that we have the complete toolkit to offer them, right? And so that's why we're focusing primarily in this advice space. So again, the integrations with the CRMs are huge. And the second one, which is really big, are the financial planning software that they use, because the CRM is not the only tool. Just like you and I, CRM is not the only software that you use. So a lot of the firms here will use financial planning software such as eMoney or Right Capital or Money Guide Pro. And again, that's a whole nother, legacy of integrating with these tools. And so that, again, that takes time, dev resources. And so that's primarily because of their initial design choices of how the templates are structured, how Millie creates and structures those notes, as well as the integrations. And so right now we want to perfect our craft here, and then we'll see what comes, in years to come. I do see expanding, but for now we want to be hyper focused.
Absolutely great. So Joe, that is where my follow-up question is around, does Millie just transcribes and structures what was discussed, or it also, provides you few, insights into the conversations, or help you, in your future conversations as well?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So yes, it does create a meeting agenda, meeting prep for your next meeting. And that's based off a few data sets. So one being the previous Millie notes that you've taken on the platform. Two would be any sort of data. If the client would like us to, it would be data that's shared on your email. So if there's been financial planning talked about during an email thread, we can pull data from that as well. We'll also pull from previous meeting notes on your CRM, because we understand if you were to start using Millie today, there's not going to be a whole lot of material for Millie to pull from, but just based on Millie notes. So we also leverage the data that's coming from the CRM as well. You can also upload other like tax documents and other PDFs or docs that you have that contain notes into Millie that will help bolster and make the meeting prep more robust.
Absolutely. I'm just thinking of one huge case is that, you remember like before this COVID stuff and all, when people used to go and meet people, do face-to-face selling, and then the other person was talking a lot of things. We were talking a lot of things, but many times when we came out of the office, we missed a few of the pointers. And that is where I think Millie can be very helpful, because, she can basically, write down all those pointers for me.
Yeah, I mean, that's the name of the game. Especially, from a sales guy, like you mentioned, we would go into the boardroom of a bank and, you would have all these great notes and have, I'm going to remember this, I'm going to remember that. But if you're up there presenting, like me as a sales guy, with a boardroom of 10 executives at a bank, you're trying to focus on each individual and what he or she said they were interested in seeing. And you can remember it at the time, but then when you leave, a lot of that is just, it's gone.
Yes.
And so, so we want to help solve, again, to talk about in-person meetings, we want to help solve for that as well. But just in general, right, we want to make sure that not only is the advisor focusing on the client, but also that they're getting meaningful notes, right? And so as a result of that, we're seeing a lot of, benefits for the advisor, right? Where typically we're seeing 30 plus hours saved a month. So that opens up more time for, new clients for the advisor and less time on admin work. So around, 20% more revenue opportunities. So you can identify new ways to grow, rather than, focusing on sending a follow-up email or updating your CRM, right? So that's, a couple of just quick ROI features that Millie provides as well.
What are the security features, like data security features, Joe, because of which I think financial advisors who are listening to this, podcast,
Yeah.
they should feel that, they're comfortable using Millie?
Yeah, absolutely. So just a couple of compliance features to talk about. Millie is hosted locally here in the United States on AWS servers in Virginia. Those are certified both ISO 27001 as well as SOC 2 compliant. So the best way to think about that is the notes that are being transcribed in Millie are just as safe and secure as the notes that you would put in Salesforce, let's say. We've gone through those same hoops to make sure that the data is stored securely and privately for both the advisor and for the client. It's important to call out there is a standard retention period. There is a word-to-word transcription. There's a summary of notes, but there's also a word-to-word transcription in the background. There's a standard retention period of 30 days for that word-to-word transcription. When at that point it's auto-deleted. However, that retention period is customizable. We have some firms that want it deleted the next day, some 6 months. It's totally up to you. And the notes that are on Millie will live throughout the existence of our relationship with the client. And then, of course, at the end of that relationship, should the time come, we will do a data transfer and port that information back to the client. So they'll always have those. Right. Another thing to call out just a little bit more on the compliance issue. I don't want to dive too deep into this since it's not what you directly asked, but it is important that since we are using AI models, right, for this, our models are never trained on customer data, customer information. And no customer PII ever enters into the AI models. And so they're actually trained on synthetic data. So that's a big one, hey, is our customer data being used to, again, enhance your AI, LLMs? And the answer to that is no, it's synthetic data.
And Joe, now a very interesting question is that since you have been selling to a lot of people, what are the common objections that you face from them?
Yeah, great question. A lot of it is around the compliance aspect of things, right? They want to make sure that, again, that their data is safe and secure. In fact, some advisors do prefer having an audio recording. So that's something we've ran into, but that's very rare. Once they start seeing the compliance risks, they start to understand Millie. So that's rare. I would say, honestly, the biggest thing that we run into is that this space is there are a lot of AI meeting assistants that are out there. So right now it's a bit of a rat race to the top to gain market share. So right now, I would say that's the biggest thing, as a sales exec here at Millie is that I run into is that they've already gone with a provider. And, at that point when they've signed a contract, it's just a little too late. So I would say that honestly, that's the biggest issue. It's not an issue of product need. I could count on one hand out of all the conversations, the hundreds of conversations that I've had where an advisor has said, I don't really need something like this. So it's not a product need. It's more of, again, just a market share opportunity. Yes. Yeah.
The options that are available, basically.
Exactly. So that's why what kind of leads me to, and you didn't necessarily ask me this, but that's what leads us to launching Millie 2.0. And so what we've been talking about so far is our meeting agent. So not to dive too deep into the agentic AI side of things, but yeah, so what we've been discussing as far as transcribing notes, updating the CRM, sending automatic follow-up email to your client, that's our meeting agent. But we're in the process of, again, rolling out Millie 2.0, which is rolling out new agents. So for instance, now we're rolling out our client operations agent. And so what that's doing is prospect enrichment, where you can run a deep search on a prospect that you're about to meet with and see a lot of their information, where they went to college, where they work, roughly how much money they make. So that way you can gauge what the opportunity is looking like. And then doing things like scheduling a meeting, preparing you for your next meeting. You can actually do through a feature called Ask Millie, similar to Ask Siri. You can ask Millie to create a preparation for your next meeting. And so I say that to say that that's how we're separating ourselves from the pack. A lot of these other note takers that are out there, we don't consider ourselves a note taker. We really want to be that AI agent for advisors. And so that's how we're separating ourselves from the traditional note taker that's out there is rolling out these new agents left and right.
Absolutely. And this is very valuable, especially for financial advisors who are going to meet new clients. You're helping them convert more clients as well. Now, the next thing is that what does your existing customer profile looks like? And what is your ideal customer persona like?
Yeah, good question. So We range anywhere from solo advisors up to firms that have well over 100 advisors. That's currently on the platform. Really, Millie is created to cater to all shapes and sizes of advice firms, right? So right now we're in the process of working with, typically I would say, back to be more direct, we're looking at firms that are north of $1 billion assets under management is what we're looking to target. But we have lots of solo advisor firms that maybe, manage 150, 200 million assets under management. So it's really, it's a good fit for all shapes and sizes, but Millie now is trying to go into, hunt for or fish for bigger fish, at this point. And so that's really, yeah, that's right. That's my focus personally is to go after the IRAs, the advice firms that are north of $1 billion assets under management. And typically we're selling to or working with compliance officers, chief compliance officers, chief operating officers that are actually managing the compliance aspect of everything with the firm. And this is a huge compliance checklist that we come to the table with. And so that's typically our ICP when it comes to the personnel. And that trickles down, of course, throughout the organization, because the compliance officer is not going to be the end user of Millie. It's going to be the advisor that's boots on the ground, not the compliance officer.
Yes. But it is very beneficial for the compliance officers.
It is, yeah. Because again, you have a lot of advisors that are going rogue now, where they're recording meetings on their phone just with the voice memo button, or that are using something like an Otter or a Zoom AI that's not compliant, right? And they don't know this is happening because the advisors aren't telling them. So it is a nightmare for the compliance officers as well.
And I've seen a lot of these solo advisors, just a naughty, stuff of the things is that will come out of these bigger firms, will establish their own, organization, will take away some 5-6 clients from there. So that
happens a lot. I mean, that's why, again, it goes back to relationships and trust. And, me as an individual, I'm not, working with a financial advisor at Morgan Stanley because I think Morgan Stanley is a great company. It's because I like that guy or that woman. And so when he or she leaves, I'm most likely going to go with that person.
So the next question is around pricing, Joe. Tell our audience a bit about how is Millie is priced.
Yeah, great question. So we have monthly and annual plans, $120 a month per advisor, or $1,200 annually per advisor. Now, it's important to call out that with each advisor seat, you also get a complimentary assistant seat. So you could have a client services assistant that can go in and edit the notes, change the notes, update the CRM, send the follow-up email, do everything that the advisor would do with the exception of actually starting a meeting. So you kind of get 1.5 seats with each advisor license. But yes, $1,200 annually or $120 per user is what we're...
Yeah. And now the last and, the best question is that you must have seen a few clients churning. What do you think, a client who is taking up Millie should take care, like kind of a playbook, so that the implementation becomes streamlined and he can get maximum benefit out of the product?
I think it's just to compare and contrast is to look at, and we've gotten feedback from a lot of advisors that we work with where they're hesitant about Millie at first. They're worried about the accuracy. They're worried about the follow-up email, things like that. And then we get feedback from them and they're like, wow, this is so much better than the notes I was taking before. And so I think that's something to keep in mind throughout your life cycle of using Millie or another tool like Millie, is that, AI is always going to be better when it comes to notes than a human, right? So it just is what it is. So I think it's important to keep that in mind throughout, when you're using it, looking at a tool like Millie or using Millie, is that, hey, look what you're doing before and the results you were getting, and just think about the potential that you could have and continue to have by leveraging Millie. I think that's important to keep in mind as to what it looked like before versus now.
Thank you so much, Joe. And, I think this is going to be very beneficial for a lot of financial advisors and advisory firms, who are looking to automate their entire process of note taking, improve their customer base, increase their customer satisfactions as well, because, this tool is going to help. And I think we covered almost like 360 degree of what Millie does, how it is different from the competitors, the pricing, what kind of customers can benefit from it. Thanks so much, Joe, for joining us.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Again, we talked a lot. It started with the meeting assistant with notes and things like that. But this is just the beginning. This is just the first inning Again, with these agents that we're rolling out, as far as data management, documents agent, making sure your data is synchronized across your CRM, across your financial planning tools. There's so much more. And so we're happy to have conversations with anyone and explain our vision and how we can help them.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, Rish. Bye-bye.